What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me are my two great co-hosts, Federico Perez and Maria Britos. And guys, here we are. It's September 13th, and unfortunately, we have to speak really on somber terms, unfortunately, as Paraguay are coming off their two games in the first combo of the 2026 qualifiers for the tournament in North America, in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. There were a lot of expectations really coming into this game for the team, for Guillermo Esqueloto. Really, the big hype has been really on this side at La Roja, and unfortunately, they fell flat on their face in the first hurdle. We're going to talk about the two games real quick, but let's just go straight into it. Let's go to someone who, for me and Maria, we have to bear with what we see on Twitter. But Fede, you're there, you're in Paraguay. You have to deal with what's been going on over the last, I would say now 4 or 5 days since the game against Peru on Thursday, and now today on Wednesday, the day after the game against Venezuela. How is before we get into the game itself? How's the mood really for you, and just from what you're feeling from there in Paraguay?
Well, disappointed as always, Roberto. Hi to you. Hi to Maria. Hi to everybody that's always listening to us in Guarani Vision. I wanted this episode to be a special episode. I wanted this episode to be really long and for us to talk about the many, many goals Paraguay was going to score in these two games. But no, we did not score a single one in neither of these two games. So after the first two games, our national team Paraguay is in the lower part of the table. That's the reality right now. People are really angry here at the coach, the players, the outcome. So far, what it feels like, this never-ending nightmare because it's not just now. It's watching the World Cup by TV, not just Qatar, the last one also, the last two. This feeling of just not deserving also the spot to be a World Cup team, even though we have more spots now in South America and we're pretty much in the next World Cup if you look at the table right now. But we're not deserving it. We're not that team yet. And that's where I think people's heads are right now, even though people went to Ciudad del Este, people filled that stadium and everybody was cheering for that team. The team let them down with that 0-0 against Peru. And now we had many opportunities to win again against Venezuela, especially in that second half. But Venezuela got the best of it in pretty much those last minutes. And we even gave them the penalty away. So, yeah, we got to look back. We got to look at everything, Roberto. I want to know what Maria's take was on this. I want to know what you thought of both games also. But let's say hi to Maria. She's always in Miami, always under good weather. But I don't know how she's feeling in this morning after what we saw last
Definitely feeling under the weather after that performance, guys. Just unbelievable. It's just so frustrating. I think. I don't know how you're doing it over there in Fede in Paraguay, because it must feel sucky to just have gone to the game yourself and just come out of the stadium disappointed. Like it's just so annoying, having to still deal with this group, feeling like they don't care about our national team, feeling like the directors don't care about the national team, or don't feel like going to the next World Cup. So it's just everything is all bottled up together, and I think everyone is at fault. There's not one single person in this tournament, in this two games, in any of the players, the directors, the coaches, the assistants. Everyone is at fault. To be honest, there's no excuse for the performance that they gave out today. This last two games, and it's just. What else can we say? This episode, it's just a bashing episode, to be honest. There's nothing good to say about anything that they've done. To give out a penalty is just embarrassing. I can probably get away with a 0-0 performance, but giving away a penalty against Venezuela, no excuse. It's just really, really disappointing. I feel like I'm usually the most positive person, and it's just there's no positive in this whole situation. So
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, no, I mean, there's nothing really to go into it. And just my quick thoughts really is just, yeah, a sense of disappointment. It's like, for a lot of people, we already are, the way that we're reacting, it's almost as if we're already out of the World Cup. And mind you, we still have 16 games left. So it's like, but when you're having that kind of feeling already, it almost feels like, what worse can we get? And rightly so. I think, I don't want to go into stats real quick because I do want to talk about what we saw in both those games. But, when you're a country that has only scored in one game in the last 11 World Cup qualifiers, the first time that a national team, this is a stat from Mr. Chip, one of the best statisticians in Paraguay, in the world, Paraguay are now the first ever national team in the history of the World Cup qualifiers in South America to not score in at least 10 of the last 11 straight matches. That's embarrassing. That really is embarrassing considering the fact that Paraguay have been blessed with so many attackers, not just even recently, but even beforehand. Like you've had the likes of Roque Santa Cruz, Salvador Cabañas, Oscar Cardoso, Nelson Valdez, I can go on, who have always been on the score sheet. And now you're almost going through 11 games without scoring a single goal. That's awful. That really is awful. And it's just, what can you go from here? I mean, yeah, and we'll talk about what the next games are happening in October, but let's go straight into what we saw. Let's go to the first game, actually, the game where, Fede, you were there, you were at the stadium, you were at the Estadio Antonio Aranda. It really felt like kind of a really good scene in a way because of the fact that it was there in Ciudad del Este. It was the first time that Paraguay was starting a really a qualification process, not a Defensores, not in Asunción, but all the way to Ciudad del Este. There was a different vibe to it, and it was completely the game that everyone thought it would be. You saw a Paraguay team that completely dominated Peru. You saw them dominate in all aspects, possession, shots. I think they had like 19 shots and, majority of them being on target. It's, the fact that the post was really the man of the match and it got hit so many times. You think to yourself, God, how much of a beating are these posts in Paraguay getting? That's how I felt. And Peru, rightly so. They felt very static. They were off the pitch. They felt off the park. Vincula getting sent off early on, so that means Peru were playing the majority of the game with 10 men. Clearly, one of the stars of that game was Ramon Sosa. I mean, talk about someone who was coming in, replacing the injured Julio Enciso. Maybe it was the blonde hair or something coming in to try to make a name for himself. And he just came in and just felt like a big spark. And it was so unlucky to not see him score in that game. The light, you could even say the same of Diego Gomez, who, even though he didn't play the second game he got off injured, I thought he had a really terrific game from in the midfield. Very disappointed from Miguel Miron, as someone who really was coming into this process with a lot of pressure because of how he was doing at Newcastle and now how it's like the third time that he's really kind of the star player of this side and we're all expecting him to stand up and he failed again. Coronel, I think he in his debut as the goalkeeper, I thought he did particularly well. I mean, yeah, he didn't really do much. I think they had one shot from Pablo Guerrero, so he wasn't really exactly fitting. The defense was good. I thought Cubas and Villasanti working that midfield was great. But again, this was the issue that Paraguay had been going through, is not scoring and not having enough attackers as well. You saw some of the changes that Guillermo Barros Schelotto made, and Kaku Romero playing only 25 minutes of that last game. It's what are you doing? And you're not even going on the offensive. I mean, I'm just going on of what I saw on TV. But Fede, you were at the ground, you were calling the game. What did you think of what we saw between that 0-0 draw between Peru and Paraguay?
Well, first of all, I really suffered those opportunities that we couldn't make, especially those balls that hit on the post. Right, it was four opportunities really clear for Paraguay, and there was even a double play where it hit twice on the post, and that was just enough for me that night because it happened on the second half. It was close to the end, and you could see it on people's faces, Roberto. I mean, yeah, the mood was totally different in Ciudad del Este. Over there, it's about five hours from Asunción. So there was a lot of people that usually don't get the chance to see the Albirroja really close to them and to see these players. It was kind of a special day. The whole city was thinking about the game. The whole city was moving around the game. Even the hotels were packed. It was even hard for me to get a hotel last minute. I couldn't even stay in Ciudad del Este. I had to stay in Presidente Franco, which is the city right next to it. So people really were on top of this match. They really wanted to be there for their national team. They really thought that they were going to see something different, that it was going to be a new start. And those first 45 minutes, they got me going, Roberto. I thought it was just a matter of luck. I just thought that we were really close and we were really taking over the match, and Peru was just not doing anything at all. Yeah, Peru, maybe they thought that a draw was a good result here, especially when they lost at Vincula and they were playing with 10 players. But Ramon Sosa was beating pretty much all the defenders. Diego Gomez was taking over in the midfield. We had a very aggressive team going forward, which is not something that we've seen lately. And we had a team that could keep the ball in the midfield, which is something that we hadn't seen in the last qualifier. So we were attacking, we were making plays, the ball was just not going in. So after the first 45 minutes, I was feeling really good about our opportunity, especially because Peru had 10 men, but the goal just never came. And you saw a coach that kind of looked scared to move his chips around, to kind of change his strategy also. And there was a player that made the difference right before this game against Peru, that was against Nicaragua in our last friendly. That was Kaku Gamarra. He came in the second half and he definitely changed the game. So he deserved to have more minutes. People were even expecting, I was expecting for a Kaku Gamarra to start in this game, or for the team to be built around him. I thought Schelotto was really gonna do something with Kaku Gamarra after what he brought to the table, but no, Schelotto didn't want to do that. He thought that Villasanti, Cubas, and Diego Gomez were the best thing that could happen for Paraguay in that midfield. And when he did it kind of late, just like you were saying. So the effect on the game was not there. Peru was just thinking about defending. We had no more opportunities, and Paraguay, you saw the Paraguay from the last qualifiers. You saw that team that just didn't know what to do. You saw a team that had the ball but just didn't know how to go forward. I'm talking about those last 15 minutes against Peru. So you were seeing that, mentally the players were being blocked again. And I was really scared in that moment because I was having flashbacks again. And you could see the leaders not pushing the pack. And I want to talk a little bit about a little bit more about that afterwards, because those leaders did not show up in the second game either, Roberto. I'm talking about Gustavo Gomez. I'm talking about Miguel Almiron. I'm talking about certain players that have been here for a while, and they are not the real leaders of the pack in the pitch where we need them.
Yeah, definitely, Fede. I think it was such a letdown the whole game. After that red card for Peru, you really thought that they were going to have a chance. You're playing against 10 players and still nothing. Everyone's just struggled in that team. You didn't see much from Almiron. You didn't see much from Rojas. No one. It was. I don't know what was going on. I don't know if it was the pitch. I don't know if it was the stadium. I don't know if it was the change of scenery or what was it. But usually, we perform really well against Peru. Not this time around. It's just so frustrating. But at least we didn't lose that game, so it wasn't as bad. I'd say. The other thing that did really bother me, and I think I sent it to you guys on the chat, was the fact that they were making fun of our stadium. Like it was just a little embarrassing. I get it. It's not Ciudad del Este, it's not Asunción. We don't have the money to create big stadiums like that. But you're hosting a World Cup qualifier. Your future in the future, you might be hosting a World Cup. What are you doing? Having a stadium like this. So I don't know, maybe that also transferred into the players, seeing the quality of where they're playing right now. But I don't know. I wanted to see more out of this team. I wanted to see more out of Almiron. Like you said, Roberto, he had so much pressure coming in. He had been playing with this national team for what couple years now already. Maybe 5 years, and I think I've only seen maybe one goal from him. It's just so frustrating. You think that someone like him will come and really give it all to everyone, to the country, and I don't know. I'm disappointed in just everyone. like I said, the Peru game was a little bit, a little bit better because we didn't get to lose, but still no goals. Definitely way off from our predictions. I think I had 2-1 against Peru, and it was just I let's see what happens now and in the next World Cup qualifiers. But there has to be a change. We're gonna be playing against Argentina, the World Cup champions, and it's just I don't know what to expect, to be honest with you. It's just gonna be I'm gonna be honest, and I think they're probably gonna lose against Argentina. The next one will be Bolivia, so maybe that one we'll see some kind of results. So I don't know. I'm just at a loss for words, guys.
Yeah, and rightly so about Almiron. I mean, Fede, I'll go to you again. And, looking at his return, he's played nearly 50 games for Paraguay ever since 2015. He scored 7. Out of those 7 goals, only one of them came from a World Cup qualifier. It was against Ecuador, and they were already eliminated. I mean, that's not what you expect as well. And you have someone like Ramon Sousa. Okay, he didn't score, but certainly he's performed at least to the extent and had more grit than what Almiron pulled in. I mean, that's someone that's playing not in the best league in the world, not in a team that's going to play in the Champions League. Like, come on, like what's that shows something. And mind you, Fede, I mean, we'll go to the second game real quick, just before that, but there had already been talks even before that Almiron should even play that second game, that everyone was calling for Kaku, everyone was calling for him to be benched. And now, even after the game against Venezuela, everyone's now thinking, you know what? Don't bring this guy anymore. I don't care if he's doing well in the best league in the world. He's not performing to the extent of what we want on the national team. Is it time to really start getting into that thinking of like someone that for many would be an undisputed starter, and for people thinking, oh man, imagine we had him on his team. Now there are people out there that are saying, we don't want you on this team anymore.
Yeah, and I can imagine other people from other countries watching this player in the Premier League and going, "Oh, he could be so good for our national team, right? He would be a really good piece for our team." But yeah, he hasn't done enough for Paraguay, especially with the spot they've given him on this team. I mean, he's been one of the leaders. He's been very important for the style of play for the last 3 coaches, probably, especially. Berizzo gave him a starting role. The team was built around him on the last qualifiers. Everybody thought that he was going to be our star, that he was going to be our Messi, that he was going to be our James from Colombia, our Alexis Sanchez of Chile. Call it like you want. He was going to be our star. He was going to be the star of Paraguay, of the national team. He has not shown up in the big games. He has not been able to score as many goals as many people think that he can score. I've never expected that many goals from him, but I've expected a game, a place that could change the game from him, because he is that kind of player. He's that player that can make the run. He's that player that can make the pass. He's a player that can make the difference. That's why Newcastle has used him as they have these last couple of years. That's why they found that kind of player in him. But there's something going on in the national team. I don't think it's just Almiron. I do think it's kind of a collective thing. That's why we don't see the same Gustavo Gomez that we see in Palmeiras either. There are certain players that just have not been the same player that we see in the club. In the national team, is it a teammate thing? Also, maybe it is. Maybe they just don't get along in the locker room. Maybe they're not pushing themselves enough. Maybe they don't have players behind them that are pushing them enough also to be that player that we want them to be. Or the coach also is giving them way too importance or giving them way too much playing time, and they're not giving them opportunities to other players. I mean, I thought Matias Rojas could have been very good in these 2 games, but he played 5 minutes against Peru and did not show up, or he was not put in against Venezuela. So it has a lot to do with the way the coach also managed, and the role that he's given to these leaders, Roberto. A lot of people after the last qualifiers were saying that let's take Almiron out of this team, let's take Gustavo Gomez out of this team. Maybe even from the players' point of view, maybe even they should resign, because for their career, this is really bad. For their image, they're not loved in the country. I mean, it's really hard for them. I mean, They carry the Paraguayan flag in the Brazilian league, in the Premier League, and even for them, I don't know how much this jeopardizes their career. I remember Messi saying that in a certain point of his career, I don't want to be here anymore. Everybody's criticizing me, and you put yourself in the player's place, and it has to be really hard for them to not be able to achieve what they want and not to be able to leave this behind, because that's what's going on with these guys. They're not being able to leave everything behind. The nightmare just keeps on happening game by game, year by year. And right now, here in Paraguay, right after the game, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, Roberto. We don't know if there's going to be a change in the manager. We don't know if there are players that are going to have certain reactions after losing a game like this against Venezuela. This was definitely not expected. What happened against Peru, and definitely what happened against Venezuela. So it's the start, but it's definitely not the start that anybody wanted.
Yeah, and going into that game against Venezuela, obviously we saw a completely different game. We saw a Paraguay side that was really more on the defensive. Really, I think in the first 25 minutes, I think that's when you saw one chance, and it was a bad giveaway. But then Almiron obviously skied it out, and then you saw a team that was just ultimately defensive. Yes, in the second half they kind of improved. They attacked really well, especially with Richard Sanchez coming in, but that was it. And then, of course, they got really lucky that Herrera didn't get the goal early on that would have gotten them the 3 points. But ultimately, it was Ivan Beatty, someone who, again, even for myself, and that's another issue that Paraguay's been going through, is the fullbacks. But him making that handball, right, to give the penalty for Venezuela, and ultimately Rondon scoring to give them the 3 points. First ever win for Venezuela against Paraguay in 22 years. Last time was 2001. So it's been a while. Another record broken for Paraguay among the various ones that are continuing to break. And now we are in the chat, of course, of what's going to happen. And I'd like to go to Maria on this one, because Guillermo Barcelotto is someone that is obviously under tremendous pressure. No one knows what's going to happen. I saw some tweets from Arturo Rubin, one of the more respected journalists in Paraguay, who typically, Fede, you can jump in afterwards about this. He doesn't really give his opinion a lot on Twitter. He usually likes to inform people, but now he's saying that this could be a chance that Paraguay can make the change and make an emergency switch to someone like Humberto Garcia, the coach of Emiliano, Daniel Ganero, currently at Libertad. There have been some names coming around and roaming through that. I mean, Maria, is it time for that? I mean, yeah, we have Argentina next in 29 days. You got Bolivia afterwards. Is it now time and premature to just pull the trigger and say, you know what, let's go and give it a chance to someone else?
Yeah, I think honestly now it's the time to just rip the Band-Aid and just get it over with. Change the director, I mean the coach. I think I don't know how many times I've said this, and I think you guys remember every time we talk about this. We got to have a Paraguayan coach. I don't know why it's not a possibility. We have so many great coaches in Paraguay, in our leagues, just showing everything that they can and putting their love into our country. We need someone like that. We need to stop giving the chances to international coaches. Yes, they might be a little bit more experienced, but I think honestly, in given the task to guide your own country's national team is much better, and it will be a much better a thing for the team, because we need that. We need heart. We need someone that understands the pain, someone that knows what needs to be done, and just go for it. I don't know if it'll be actually done. I don't know if Sclotto's gonna leave this time around, because I think it's probably too short of a time to do it. But at least let's see how they do next two games, and then after that, I just start doing that, and not just the coach, but also the directors. There's been a lot of talk in Twitter as well. Sorry, X now, about changing the national federation's directors, like Harrison. Just get him out of there. There's a lot of talk about corruption and just not caring about the actual team. So I think it also comes from that side, the behind the scenes, the decisions that they make eventually affect, our national team, our performance, our future. So there's a lot of changes that need to be done, and it starts with the coach and with the directors, and then everything will translate into the players. I think maybe if they see a federation that actually cares about the players and the national team, then it'll translate into their performance, and they will actually care about this team. Obviously, it's just the first rounds of qualifiers. We are probably a little too desperate, but you got to make changes ahead of time before it gets even worse.
Yeah, Steloto definitely has to give some explanations to Robert Harrison, the FA president. I think he was waiting for him right after he got back to Paraguay. Yeah, there were a couple of meetings last night that were probably important just to kind of know where we are, but there were no decisions made yet. So I'm thinking that, yeah, they're probably going to hear Steloto out. They're going to ask him, why'd you do this? Why didn't you do that? Why'd you put this player in so late? Why didn't we attack a little bit more? The coach is going to give his explanations. He gave them, especially after that first press conference after we played against Peru. He didn't want to put two center forwards. That was something that a lot of people were talking about. It was kind of weird, but you do have the feeling or the sensation that that Steloto did not believe in the potential that this squad has. I mean, I do think individually we have better players right now than we had in the last qualifier. So it is kind of, let's go for it. We need to win. We need to score. I mean, he's obviously going to show people stats, and he's going to be like, against Peru, we had 19 shots, 6 on target, 11 corners. I'm not the one that's going to score them. The guy's got to score them. He's going to say, against Venezuela, 18 shots, 11 were inside the box, 5 on target. We had 1 clear opportunity. Obviously, he's gonna have his stuff about it. He's gonna say that, hey, Diego Gomez had just his first game with the Paraguayan shirt, whatever. But this is not just from now, guys. I mean, I think you got to put this. You have to cut it right now. To be honest, I think so far Steloto has not shown that winning mentality that we need for our players going forward and trying to leave everything behind, everything that's happened. He has not been able to change that chip. He has not been able to change the mentality of the players. And that's where I think we need somebody that comes into the locker room and doesn't talk that much about football, but can bring the players up. I mean, we need to change the mood. I'm not going to talk that much about football because it depends on what kind of players you're going to use. Maybe if Steloto leaves and Carlos Coronel is not even the goalkeeper anymore, because this is something that Steloto brought to the table. I mean, nobody even had it on the radar, Carlos Coronel, before Steloto took over. So there's been a couple of decisions that he's made. There are certain players that have been playing because he's the coach. Andres Cubas is another one. The role that he's given to certain players that we talked before, like Gustavo Gomez being the captain, Miguel Almiron, the role that he has. And yeah, I do think right now I would personally change the managers just because of what he's shown us. And because we went through this with Berizzo, guys. I mean, we gave Berizzo enough time and we ended up suffering with Eduardo Berizzo. And Chile's going through it right now, and they're about to let him go also. So I don't want to go through the same thing again. I do think there are very good coaches out there that you can hire. I just don't know if they're going to want the job. Last time around, we had many difficulties negotiating and trying to get us a coach here. So, and the next match is just 1 month away, and it's against the world champions. I don't know if the time is right now, but I do think we should start looking for other options, Roberto, to be honest, because so far Steloto has let me down just as much as the players.
Yeah, I think that's really the mentality to go through. Just where do we go from here? Where do we stand? And I think there's going to be a lot of questions really asked for the next 29 days until the game against Argentina, because one will have to say what mentality, what identity that Paraguay is having, and that's the thing that's always been the issue. I've always been asked about it. Even I'm sure you guys even asked, well, why is Paraguay playing so badly? How do they fall off so bad? Well, it's not. It's like they've lost all this mentality. Maria brings up a good point about the fact that it goes into deeper issues of corruption and perhaps players that are always getting called up, but because they have really strong agents who have a say, they feel like they have the idea to say, we're telling you these guys will pay whatever money we need, and we're going to put you guys on the national team. It can go that's a bigger discussion itself, but no, it is frustrating. So I would hope, and it's a big hope, obviously, that in this time next month, that there is this sort of idea of a different mentality, and it could mean I mean, you could lose against Argentina, great, but you could also, like, if we beat Bolivia, God forbid what happens if we lose that game, and I'm not gonna go into that afterwards, but like that's it, literally. That is really what it goes through. So I guess to close off here,
Wait, wait, wait,
Paraguay
wait, wait,
really,
wait, wait, wait,
yeah,
wait,
go
wait.
ahead,
Don't close it
go
off.
ahead, Fede, go ahead, Fede.
We gotta close it on a positive note, Roberto. I mean, I want to hear
Okay.
you guys one or two good things that you saw out of these games. One or two players at least. Come on, give me
Ramon
something good.
Sosa, 100%. I think he's someone for the future, and I think his performances are helping him, perhaps even giving him a starting performance. I think he's someone that, and even for Coronel, you said if this is someone that, okay, penalty kick aside, I think he had a good game, and I think we have two players for the future. So those are my two players. That's my positive sign. I don't know, Maria, if you can agree with me in there, but I think Sosa and Coronel are the ones that are putting up. And also, I like to add, I think Villasanti has really performed much better than what I thought of. I really didn't have enough hope for him after like inconsistent games. The same for Cuas, being someone where I think is he too small to be one of those kind of fighting midfielders, as kind of that the holding midfielder that we haven't had in quite some time. I think these performances have shown, yeah, I think he's kind of passed the first two tests as well. So Sosa, Villasanti, Sosa, Villasanti, Cuas, and Coronel in goal. I think those are the positive signs if we can even choose from that.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Ramon Sosa had a really good game despite everything. I think he was the one in the Peru game that moved everyone around and the ball around the whole time. So it was just a really good performance from him. Maybe he can be some kind of a leader in the future. We'll see about that. But yeah, that's about it for me from my side. I don't know about you, Fede.
Yeah, I'm gonna put Ramon Sosa on that first spot also, like up there. On the second spot, I'm gonna put Diego Gomez because I really loved his first half. It was his first game, guys. I don't know if you guys saw him in tears as the national anthem was flowing by his ears. I mean, that was a special moment also in Ciudad del Este, just to see him emotional like that. I think that's a player that's just gonna evolve and evolve. And the third player is kind of hard for me. I like Matias Villasanti. Yeah, I'll put Matias Villasanti in there in that third spot. I think those are three players that we can build around for the next games, and obviously hoping for Julio and Cesar to get better soon. We want you, Julio and Cesar, next year, and maybe even Enzo Gonzalez, guys. I'm looking forward to it. Enzo Gonzalez is probably going to have his first game with Wolves. That's a player that's not on the radar right now, but hey, in a month, who knows?
Who knows? Indeed, we'll have to wait and see. At least, hey, that's one positive notes to go into. So thank you, Fede, on that one. So I'll close it off here for another episode of Guarani Vision. For myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, and Maria Britos, thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.